And good morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful day out there, but it's an even better day here in the studio because we have America's Sheriff, my friend and yours, Tom Hodgson, who's in with us today to update us on what's going on with immigration and with his organization, the sheriffs across the country who are rallying to the sound of the guns to keep and make America safe again. Good morning, Sheriff. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Chris. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Folks, if you for some reason, if you've never seen the Sheriff before, you can see us live. We're streaming this live on YouTube, our YouTube channel. And if for some reason you're not able to catch the entire interview, well, don't worry about it. We'll put it up on WBSM.com as well. So we'll have the Sheriff there. Just go to YouTube and then our WBSM TV channel, and that's how you can watch us live in studio. So, Sheriff, as you've been fighting this fight for a long time, and as you said to me off the air, the tide is turning.
Yeah, Chris, finally, I think not only have of course, the sheriffs have been trying to correct this issue for quite some time, but I think the American people finally see exactly what's going on, that they've been put in a position where they're made to feel that they're the people who are the problem, and that the people who are here illegally are the ones that really need to be protected. And I think it's most clearly illustrated in what happened out in California with Attorney General Becerra, where, as you know, these sanctuary cities have, and the elected officials who are promoting them,
right,
have been saying, look, we need to bring the people who have violated and disrespected the laws of the United States, come here illegally, and particularly the criminally illegal aliens. We need to allow them, if they're living in these sanctuaries, to be able to come out of the shadows and have this protective bubble around them,
right,
that nobody can, notify ICE or anyone else, and you need to hands off. And then just less than a month ago, you have the Attorney General of California saying, listen, you law-abiding citizens, you business owners and citizens of California, if you dare to cooperate with law enforcement in trying to keep your community safe, we're going to prosecute you. So he's essentially saying, you law-abiding citizens, you need to go into the shadows. We've been working for decades to get neighborhood watches and,
right,
and law enforcement agencies to cooperate, share information, intelligence, resources to become more efficient and cost effective. And now you've got these elected officials who are trying to break all that apart so that we're able to provide less protections than we otherwise could. It makes no sense, and I think the American people finally said, you know what, enough's enough. We're tired of seeing American people, American citizens and legal residents who are here, who've done it the right way, being victims of crime, murdered,
slaughtered,
losing their loved ones. Oh, absolutely.
Slaughtered.
And every day people are being killed by illegals in this country.
Sheriff, I just want to put a
Never mind the drugs, excuse me.
Never mind the drugs, right, which is ultimately a long-term
right,
slaughter. Sheriff, I'd like you to help put an end to a myth. The one thing they say about why we need sanctuary cities is because illegal immigrants then will help cooperate to solve crimes and be witnesses. Is there any truth to that whatsoever?
No, and this was one of those sort of marketing tools they tried to use to make it seem like there was a real rational reason why we needed to do this. But think about this, Chris. You just asked me a question that these people who are pro-sanctuary are saying we need them to be able to be free and report things to us. And the people who already are free, the citizens of this country, the legal residents, the people who did it the right way,
right,
who are immigrants here, who became citizens or are here legally, they're telling them, do not cooperate.
Right.
Do not report, these people who are illegal, the criminally illegal aliens.
Right.
So,
what's up is down. What's right is wrong. It's insane.
It is insane. And I think, they tried to deflect and confuse people with those kinds of arguments. But
right,
you know what's happening, Chris? The American people are finally seeing, oh, no. I'm starting to see through this now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching some of my friends or neighbors getting hooked on drugs that the cartels are pushing over the border every day.
Right.
I'm watching, people who are being killed by drunk drivers who are here illegally, don't have licenses, people being murdered, slaughtered by MS-13 members, recruiting going on in the schools, that school in Long Island where the kids were going home telling their parents, hey, Mom, Dad, this gang's taken over our school.
Right. Right.
And so we can't have that in America. We owe our children, we owe our children's children, and we owe it to ourselves to carry forward what our forefathers gave us. And that was rule of law, so that we could have a republic where people could come legally immigrate here, aspire to become American citizens the right way, and do it in a way that we use our laws to protect our republic and our democracy.
Right. I have in my hand here a letter from the National Sheriff's Association that you spearheaded. Talk a little bit about what you're asking Congress to do, Sheriff, you and the other sheriffs. Well,
I think, as you know, Chris, you and I have spoken about this. I've been working on immigration reform for 20 years.
Way before it was popular.
Well, yeah, but I've been working on it for 20 years, and what's happened is, over the course of these 20 years, it's the same rhetoric. Okay, the Republicans and the Democrats argue and complain about one another, and which one is more anti-immigrant when a bill comes up, and so they always give you these sort of shallow answers to a very complex problem. Now, think about this: if you and I worked at some company, and they told us you and I had to come up with 6 solutions to problems, and we're going to give you 20 years to do it.
Right.
And you and I, we're at 3 years for each one would give you 18 years, right? Right. With 2 years left over. But here we are at 20 years, and we go to our boss and say, well, we haven't really done anything with it. We're just kind of still discussing it. First of all, we wouldn't get to 20 years.
No, sir.
The first 3 years, even
be
before
gone.
that part, we'd be gone.
Right.
Okay? And so I think people are, what the sheriffs have said is, for these 20 years, at least for me, I've seen it, and the sheriffs over the course of time have seen this, that they have, through their inaction, through their insider politics, which is all that goes on down there, they have essentially undermined law enforcement's ability to keep the people in our community safe.
Right.
They've told us in some communities you can't hold these people. You have to release these criminals back into the neighborhoods so they can victimize people again.
They often are victimizing legal aliens, right?
Right.
I mean, you come to the country, you get a green card, you're doing the right thing.
A lot of those communities.
Right.
But also keep in mind, these sanctuaries, they go to the sanctuaries because they know that it's hands off, but they aren't going to ruin their hiding place where people are going to leave them alone. They're going to go hit the community next to them.
Right.
Right. But
excellent point.
But the other thing that's happening, Chris, is it's not just about the increased victimization in our country that's been going on and getting worse, and the drug situation, the sex trafficking and human trafficking, which is out of control. It's also, importantly, this attempt by them to break apart our partnerships. After 9/11, we all recognized from the federal, state, local level, we needed to do a better job sharing information with each other. That was one of the big criticisms around 9/11. The FBI wasn't talking to CIA. This one wasn't talking to the local agency, and everybody was working in these silos. We've been working hard to build these partnerships. You see these regional task forces, right?
Right.
You see MetroLec, you see SEMLEC. These are all, and we did it because we realized after 9/11 that we all have different disciplines. The feds are part of those things. We can't work in silos and say, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you that this guy who falls under your jurisdiction, I'm not going to tell you he's there.
Right.
I was talking off the air when I first came in to you about a situation in California where the ICE agents had pulled somebody over that they suspected was illegal.
Right.
Turns out the guy was not illegal, but he was drunk as a skunk, had no license, and they called the local police in California.
Right.
And they said, we're not going to respond because you guys pulled them over. It was initially a federal thing, and they had to let him go drunk because they didn't have the authority to arrest him.
He wasn't, because they just would not have any cooperation whatsoever with the federal government.
Because under the sanctuary statute, if the police had cooperated, then they would have been in a situation where they would have violated the law.
Right.
And so basically, this is what I'm talking about. These people like Jerry Brown,
Becerra there, the Attorney General.
These other mayors and so forth around the country we have some locally, who are trying to prevent law enforcement from, who does that? Who in elective office says, we want you to have less information to keep the people in the community safe?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Imagine if Amazon operated that way. You know, as you point out, Sheriff, if they would have been fired, it never would have operated that way. Imagine if the people in shipping wouldn't tell the people in receiving what they're doing, or the people in order fulfillment aren't telling us. I mean, you just would never do that. No company can operate that way, and our government can't operate that way.
Right, and look what just happened with the sheriff in Orange County. You know, she 2 days ago.
Tell people so they don't if they don't realize.
The woman the sheriff in Orange County, who happened to be the president of the major county sheriffs last year, she was told by Becerra. She decided, look, I took an oath not to allow people to be victimized out here. My job, first and foremost, is to protect people. And I'm not going to release these people out of my jail that are criminally illegal aliens that I know are going to go out and victimize somebody again. Some guy did rape the child, and I got to let the person go back out and victimize another child? I don't think so. So what she said was, I'm going to publicize all the release dates of every one of my people that are in my jail, so that ICE knows when they're getting out and they're here, ready to grab them if they have an interest in them. Becerra, the AG out there, said, well, the sheriff's in violation of state law, and he was asked, well, are you going to arrest her, or charge her? And he said, well, I think I've already answered that question, meaning, yeah, she violated state law. And the sheriff said, well, I'm doing everything within the law, and my suggestion would be that the Attorney General not go that route and start thinking he's going to start arresting sheriffs across this country.
It's crazy. But you know something, Sheriff? You have been advocating arresting, or at least processing an arrest warrant on people who are creating these sanctuary cities. And it's now become policy, or perhaps it's going to become policy, at Homeland Security. We'll take a very quick break. When we come back, I want to talk to you more about that.
Sure.
We'll be back, folks, to speak with Sheriff Tom Hodgson of Bristol County. All right, welcome back to the Chris McCarthy Show. I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate you, Sheriff Tom Hodgson, for coming and spending your morning with us, talking about immigration. Sheriff, so you had been advocating, because these sanctuary cities are a real problem, as you point out. They're an island of criminality that then they get to export their crime to the other communities rather than their hideouts. It's like the hole-in-the-wall gang, They didn't, right? And so you've been advocating that you get tough with these people who are doing this. These elected officials. Talk about that.
Yeah, look, the federal law supersedes state law, and clearly under Title 8, Section 1324, it says that anyone who attempts to harbor or conceal someone they know to be in the country illegally is guilty of a felony under federal law.
Right. Why
would any of us think it was okay for elected officials to pick and choose what laws they want to follow or not?
Right.
They took an oath just like the rest of us did, and then create a special class of people who are going to be forgiven of those laws that everyone else is expected to follow. So, if they're violating the law, if you violate the law or I violate 1324, we're going to get arrested.
Right.
Okay, because it's a federal law.
Right.
And the arrogance of saying, we don't have to follow that law, and we're frustrated that Congress hasn't done anything on immigration reform. Well, you know what? We're all frustrated. I've been doing this for 20 years.
Right.
But I'm not going to go out and start breaking the law because it didn't work. I don't know if I had spoken to you before on this. If I had, you tell me. But last time I was on, I think I may have mentioned the fact that the FCC, the FAA, immigration, they're all regulated by Congress.
Right.
Right. So
explain that.
Let's say that you and I are airport managers from different communities. You're somewhere in New Hampshire. I'm in Massachusetts.
Right.
At Mansfield, say, and you've been petitioning Congress for 5 years to give you a new route down to this place in North Carolina.
Okay.
Because your current route takes you almost a half hour longer, costs you more gas. It's less convenient for the customers, and if you could get this thing passed, the route that you want, it'll work better for everybody.
Okay.
I've been petitioning for one down to say South Carolina.
Okay.
For the same reasons. And I've been asking for 7 years for them to do it, and they haven't done anything. They talked about it. They didn't want to do it because this congressman didn't want to trade off this or that, whatever.
Right.
So you and I finally decide, you go, hey, it's been 6 years. It's been 7 years for me. The heck with these guys. We're just going to go the route that we want to go, save our money. We're not going to wait around for these guys who are sitting down there under the dome playing insider baseball. We're just going to do it.
Right.
Can you imagine the chaos in the skies if people just said, the heck with the FAA and the heck with Congress's rules about this, we're just going to do it.
What a great example.
That's what's going on with immigration. You want to talk about chaos. People being killed.
Right.
Innocent. What do you think that the AVIAC, the moms and dads who've lost loved ones,
right? What
do you think they think every day when they read again that some other innocent American has been killed by some criminal illegal alien that's in this country? Basically, most of them are feeling like, you know what? We've been fighting to prevent this from happening to other families. We know the pain, but
right.
You know what? Obviously, they don't. Not only do they not care about that person that just got killed, they don't even care about my kid.
Right. They don't care.
They don't care, and they don't care about the loss that I feel every day. They don't. None of that matters to them. They're more interested in taking care of these people who violated the law because in some way it makes them feel virtuous or whatever.
Whatever.
At the expense of my children? I don't think so.
We're speaking of Sheriff Tom Hodgson. And by the way, if you're just tuning in, we will have this entire interview up on WBSM.com. In a little bit. Sheriff, what does drive this, do you think? I mean, I know obviously you come from the entire opposite spectrum, but what is driving this mentality that says, I want to protect people who've broken into the country? Because if you've noticed, as I'm sure you have, they're no longer using the word undocumented aliens, or they're just saying immigrants. They're lumping the legal immigrants in with the illegal immigrants, which is a tremendous disservice to the good men and women who've come to the country and followed the process, right? What is driving this mentality? They say a person who's broken into the country has more rights, and I care more about them than the people who are here legally and the people who were born here. What's driving this, if you have an idea?
It's clear. It's certainly not logic because the average person gets it, right? They see where the the disparity is. They see where the unfairness is. It's politics. It's all about votes. It
Right.
is all about votes. How can I make the other party appear less favorable to the immigrant community, helping maybe their relatives get in here, because that will guarantee me their vote, right? Look,
So it's very cynical.
there's no question about it.
Right.
There is. You've said it, I don't know how many times since we've been on the air.
Right.
This is crazy.
It's crazy.
Right. I mean, on the face of it, it's crazy. So there can only, just the fact that they would do it. So, yeah, there has to be some motivation for it that would be a benefit to them. What
Right.
would it be?
Right.
Why would you not want to stop the drugs from flowing into this country
Right.
on a daily basis by these cartels by building a barrier, protecting our sovereignty, protecting our children and our children's children in the future? I mean, the fentanyl now, they're talking about, it's going to be, they're concerned about fentanyl. It's going to be the next epidemic on being, cocaine being laced with the fentanyl.
Right. And marijuana, too.
Yeah. And so why would any of us sit silent when we know that there is a movement to bring more drugs in here and expose them to our children who ultimately will get hooked and die? How do we,
Right.
how do we in good conscience sit there
Right.
and allow any elected official to promote that kind of thing and not push back?
And just so for people who aren't aware of this, maybe the sheriff can elaborate. I know that the Boston Herald got a hold of a document from the Boston police. It said nationals from the Dominican Republic, illegal aliens, are in control of the fentanyl distribution network here in Boston and throughout Massachusetts.
Right. And we know that we know about we're working on some things on imposters. They're the biggest offenders when it comes to obtaining fraudulent IDs.
Right.
They work the system through Puerto Rico, and that's a huge problem. But we've got some things going on right now. I'm encouraging sheriffs around the country to run their databases of everybody they have in there and look for these key indicators of anybody who might be an imposter. And I can tell you, there are thousands of imposters in jails across this country that nobody knows about.
So what you're saying is that they're illegal aliens, mostly from the Dominican Republic, but they go through Puerto Rico and get documents from Puerto Rico, which makes them American citizens, and then pretend to be Puerto Rican, which makes them American citizens.
And the system in Puerto Rico had to be revamped because it was so easy for people to just get anybody's birth certificate.
Right.
And so they made everybody refile for birth certificates. But the damage is already done.
And they're bringing in the fentanyl and killing people.
Yes. And people are dying every day. You know what the epidemic is right now with the
unbelievable.
opioid crisis. And now they're going to be putting on marijuana. Marijuana is going to be legalized. What do you think is going to happen? And they're going to try to get people hooked on something much stronger.
Right.
Right? That's
Right.
the whole idea.
Right.
To draw them to heroin, draw them to this, draw them to that,
Right.
and take them away from the marijuana. Just enough to get them started, and then they go to a harder drug. This is a serious problem that we can't ignore. And for the life of me, I can't understand any elected official. It boggles my mind that anybody would think that it's okay for people, certain groups, to violate the law, and you, rest of the public, hands off. Imagine if you told Marty Walsh or Mayor Curtatone,
Right.
hey, listen, I have a conscientious objection to some of the things you're using my tax dollars for.
Right.
So you know what? I'm not paying my taxes. Do you think they're going to create a special class of people and go, well, they're conscientious objectors. No, they're not really following the law, but you know what? Leave them alone. Of
Right.
course they won't.
Of course not.
What gives them the right to say, you don't have to follow federal law? And you know what? We're gonna get behind you on that, and we'll protect you from being identified.
Sheriff, you have a great working relationship with the president, with the attorney general. For those people who don't know this, you're regularly down in Washington advising them on that. Talk about the change in the tone in Washington, Trump versus the Obama administration, even maybe the Bush administration.
Oh, look,
on this issue.
It's night and day, and I can't tell you how thrilled the sheriffs in this country, the American sheriffs, are ecstatic at how the president stepped in and said, I'm going to back up the sheriffs. I'm going to back up law enforcement. We are going to enforce the rule of law in this country. And God bless him for that, because, there are so many before, and certainly we know what happened in the Obama administration. They basically, him and Eric Holder, undermined law enforcement. started to make us appear as though we were the problem.
Right.
And started sort of, I think you remember him saying Trayvon Martin could have been his son. When Ferguson happened, he was, I remember confronting Eric Holder at a National Sheriff's Conference and saying, well, how could you possibly come out and suggest that this was based on race before the investigation was even done? And now that both yours and the original investigation are done and showed the officer did everything he was trained to do and did it appropriately based on the threat he was faced with, how do you answer to law enforcement that you've undermined us across this country and caused officers to hesitate when they shouldn't be hesitating, putting them in more danger? And this is what's happened under the Obama administration. And the president stepped in and said, no, we're going to reinstitute the rule of law and the enforcement of our laws. And that's the only way you can preserve democracy. The laws are the framework by which we're able to have democracy and a republic. So it's a huge difference. And the president, every step of the way, he's had meeting upon meeting with some police chiefs, with sheriffs, and he's made it clear. We're going to stand according to the rule of law and make sure that if somebody wants to change the law, we'll go by that law. But in the meantime, we are not going to have people pick and choose what they're going to do at the expense of dangers to our citizens. No, I think it's been a tremendous sea change. Look, anytime they have Tom Hodgson in the White House telling him, giving his opinion, I think it's a good thing for America. Well, we got a lot of people giving their opinions, and it's a good thing to get different perspectives. But we're in the communities. And hey, it was over a year ago when you made that statement, because I had you up to a different radio station. I think we had you here too, about arresting those mayors who were running sanctuary cities. And then when I heard the Secretary of Health and Secretary of Homeland Security say it to the U.S. Senate, I called you right away. I watched it on TV and I said, oh my God, that's Tom Hodgson just suggested that a year ago. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We're going to take a quick call. Sure. Good morning. You're live with Sheriff Tom Hodgson on WBSM.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Sheriff Hodgson.
Good morning, caller.
How are you?
I'm good.
Just a thing, just to let you know, I worked at the methadone clinic. I'm very upset. I talked to a renowned attorney who knows what I'm talking about, and he says the state and feds are not doing anything about it. But there are about 65 to 70% of people who are still doing their drugs and still getting methadone, but they won't release it to the public, to the feds, or to the state. I want to know why. Can you answer that question for me?
Are you saying that these are 65 to 70% are illegals?
No. I'm talking about people that are going to the clinics that are still doing the stuff and still getting their methadone that we are paying for, the taxpayer.
Okay. So you're saying they're still doing the street drugs and they're getting methadone? Yeah,
and they get a slap on the hand. They get a little punishment, this and that. And I talked to a renowned attorney. He knows you. You know him. I'm not going to mention his name on the air.
Yep.
He's retiring. He's been in the practice for over 50 years. And he said, Jeff, I've been through this. There's nothing. They don't release nothing. Yeah. Everything is all private records.
Well,
I think the government should do something about it.
Well, I do.
And stop. Go ahead, Tom.
I do think so. I think that there should be some. There should be some oversight and determining whether or not, the people that are legitimately going there actually are involved in the methadone program. Personally, I'm not a big methadone supporter. I think that and I've spoken to people who had serious addictions. One was a chemical engineer, and he told me, he said, look, giving us drugs to get off drugs is not the answer, because all it's doing is reminding us that we have to rely on something to live in life, and it has to be either synthetic or the drug itself, and that we basically are saying to ourselves, we can't change our behavior to get out of it. And what he said to me, and another addict said to me, look, we need to change our mindsets. We need to get into more mindfulness and be able to break away from this stuff. So they should be looking at programs on a regular basis to see, are they working? Is it effective? And talk to the people who are involved in it. And is it being abused? And if it's being abused, they should have some performance indicators that they're looking at to tell them, when these anomalies happen, and then make the changes that they have to make. All right, thanks, Nancy. We'll take another call here.
Good morning. Thanks for holding your live with Sheriff Tom Hodgson.
Yeah, good morning. I'd like to ask the sheriff a quick question. So, this whole illegal alien debate, illegals and sanctuary cities, and, you got mayors and even states saying, nope, we're not going to enforce the law. So what would be different than saying, say it's California, everyone can have a handgun in California without a license. Doesn't matter. You don't need a license, but because not everyone who has the handgun is going to do something wrong, right? Just like the illegals, not everybody's bad.
Great
but
point.
Why would that? What's the difference of saying, yeah, go ahead, just circumvent the law, have a gun in your possession, and you don't need a license versus you don't have to be here legally? I mean, what is the difference?
There isn't a difference.
Thanks for the call.
And that's a good point.
It's a fantastic point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly the same thing. The hypocrisy runs deep with these pro-illegal people, and it's so evident. People see it. This caller obviously brings it right to the forefront and says, "Hey, look, it isn't any different. It's the exact same thing."
And there's a mindset of someone. So it really frosts me that they're joining the illegal alien community with the legal alien community, right? The legal immigrant community. I mean, it's such a disservice to the people who've done the right thing.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because that's such an important point. And people, I've tried to make this point to get people to, when they're listening to somebody talking about this debate, particularly the pro-illegal people, right? Ask them as soon as they. In fact, I saw it in the paper the other day when Marty Walsh was criticizing the Trump administration on something and said we can't. Our immigrant community is important to us. First, he said you can't classify everybody as illegal, and then he said our immigrant community is important to us. Right. So he went immediately from illegal to immigrant community as though they were one and the same. And people, the listeners really need to pay attention. When these pro-illegal people are talking, they intentionally will identify the illegals as immigrants.
Right.
Listen, you and I and every listener out there, I'm sure, we encourage and we're proud that we have people immigrating to our country and making it stronger by their different cultures and all that. But they're immigrants. We're not against immigrants.
No.
We're against illegal immigrants.
Right.
And we can't have, and I think I've mentioned this before, we can't have people who have waited their turn, paid the fee that it was required to get here. Maybe eventually their family come first, and then now they're catching up because they all couldn't come at once.
Right.
But they did everything the right way,
right.
Respected our laws. We can't have them standing on the USS Massachusetts taking their oath, going, in their minds going, am I a fool?
Right.
I should have just snuck in like everybody else.
Right.
What kind of a message would that be? That it doesn't matter. It really denigrates the sacredness of what this country's all about.
Right. And Tom, the particularly cynical part of it is that there's already a loss of translation for many people who come to the country and English is their second language. So all they're hearing is immigrant, immigrant, immigrant.
Yes.
So the politician who conflates the two, it's even worse than what normally is done with political doublespeak, right? Because they know, for some of them, not all of them, obviously. If you're from Ireland, you're going to get it, or if you're from England. But if English is your second language and you're a legal immigrant to this country, you're hearing that you're under attack by the Bush administration, or by the Trump administration, or by Tom Hodgson, when you aren't. Right. And they know it, and they're doing it on purpose, and they're scaring people that shouldn't be scared.
And again, that's a great point, Chris. And I think it's important to underscore the fact, which you just said, the listening audience, when they do this, when they start talking about illegal immigrant and they switch immediately to meld the two as an immigrant is the same as an illegal immigrant,
right?
So it makes it appear there really is no difference. They're playing the listener and the people of this country to be stupid.
Right.
They're being disingenuous intentionally. This is not an accident.
No.
This doesn't just isn't sort of like a confused sort of thing. And geez, I kind of confused it. They know the difference between the two.
Sure they do.
And they intentionally will not use the word illegal because they want to try to see if they can fool them.
And they won't even use undocumented any longer. That's what I noticed when I didn't hear undocumented anymore. I went, because everyone knows what undocumented means now. It means illegal alien. They've lost that. Right? So everyone knows, you can say illegal alien, undocumented, everyone understands it means the same thing. So they've dropped that. And now it's just the whole thing. And I thought, this is unconscionable, what's going on. We got another call.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. All right. Thanks for holding. You're live with Sheriff Tom Hodgson on WBSM.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, caller.
thank you for your relentless pursuit of the justice for us people in the United States who are doing everything legally. It's a pleasure to have you in office, and I hope you stay in office. I was hoping you were going to run for senator and beat somebody else out. But
we all did.
I'll keep you right where you are and be happy with it.
Well, thank you, caller. I would tell you, I consider myself to be very privileged to have the opportunity to serve. Well, and when you have that opportunity, I think everybody expects us to follow the oath, follow our Constitution, and where we see that someone is or people are trying to work against those things at the expense of the people that put us here, we have an obligation to stand up.
Your phone's breaking up, caller. I think we all, I talked to him personally, I talked to him on the air, we all wanted you to run for U.S. Senator, but I think your point is made, which you made to me privately, and you've said it publicly. You're probably doing more in this position than you would be as a U.S. Senator.
Well, look at Congress, right?
Right.
How much got done this year? What have they done except argue and bicker and complain? And this goes on year after year, and it's not fair to the American people.
Right.
So you know what? Those of us at the local level, we're closer to the people.
Right.
We can still impact things in Washington. This letter that went out with these 380 sheriffs, let me tell you something. Every member of Congress got it.
Right.
And the sheriffs across this country right now are reaching out to all their media people in Iowa, Idaho, all over this country, Oklahoma, and they're telling them we're sick and tired of this nonsense that's going on down there, the inaction on the part of Congress for 20 years.
Right.
None of us could be in a job and not do something for 20 years. And that speaks volumes about what's continuing to go on and how the blueprint hasn't changed down there. And I wouldn't want to be a part of a failed.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Sheriff. I know I have to get you out of here. You've got another appointment. But thank you so much, Sheriff.
Yep.
Really appreciate it. We'll
Thanks
be right back, folks. Thanks.